So this is a fantastic turnout. Thank you all for being here. Jamie, you're a great draw. This is a great day, not just because Jamie's here. It's wonderful for me to be the straight man in this. I brought my little JP Morgan Healthcare Conference folder, so I keep us on track, which is probably not going to happen. A couple of quick comments to add to the mayor's about JP Morgan Chase here in town. People don't often realize the size of the impact of JP Morgan here. There are 20,000 people in this region. And I think going back to that earlier commitment, I think there were 10,000 just a few years ago. So we are so appreciative here in this community for the work around education, workforce preparedness, the work done for returning veterans. So the impact that Jamie and his team and Jim Waltz and team have had on this community is just fantastic. We're so appreciative, so thanks for that.
Thank you.
So we thought what we'd do here is we're going to start local, maybe go national a little bit, talk a little global, and then maybe a couple of other topics of interest. So let's talk local first. It's just about 15 years since you came as chairman and CEO of Bank One, and 10 years since the JP Morgan acquisition. So you've had some interesting experiences here. This is a welcome home.
Thank you, yep.
Tell us your observations about what you've seen in the change.
Yeah, so welcome. It's a thrill to be back here again. And I came here as like April of 2000. Bank One, First Chicago, had merged. It was failing. The stocks were down. Everyone hated each other. I probably had to lay off a lot of people, and you have to fix a company. So I made a quick trip around to the major places we did business, Columbus being the primary one, and I visited the mayor, I visited John Wolfe at Dispatch. Everyone was mad at me that somehow I wasn't yet to blame for the problems of Bank One. And but the amazing thing was you come back here, like none of this stuff was here, folks. This wasn't here. The Hilton Hotel wasn't here. Most of those restaurants weren't here. The growth has been just outstanding. And as an employer, Columbus has been just a fabulous place to employ people. I don't know if you know our Polaris Center. There's now 10,000 people. We renamed the John G. McCoy Center. And we have other operations here, but it's been a fabulous place. Unemployment here is like 3%. So when I come back to a place like Columbus, it just reminds me, how much of that do you think your growth and success has been related to the federal government? People move on. They build their business. Look at the wonderful small business up here, expanding, recruiting, hiring, participating in the community, which I think is a wonderful thing to do. So it's been, we've been part of the growth of it, but it's also because it's so good here that we have so much here.
So you talked a little bit about the development and workforce. I know this has been a major theme for you guys. I think some work has been published and announced today in partnership with the Columbus Foundation around workforce preparedness. Your perspectives on that, on how you guys see this in a big sense. Yeah,
so we, and I like one of the folks who got an award up here, we both do the money and the real time, and so we have a lot of smart people working these issues. Workforce readiness is a huge issue in the United States. It's a huge issue around the world. So we're doing a huge multi-year study. It's global, so we hope to learn from around the world. So Germany, by the way, is the best at taking you from high school into vocational training to a job. They dwarf us. And some of the best ideas, what we hope to do is take the best ideas from Columbus and make it national or international. And so we announced one today, but we're going to be announcing successive ones periodically. And it basically gets people jobs. And it's got to be done locally, by the way. The local businesses have to hook up the local high schools, local community schools, the local training, say, what do we need? And train the kids so they have jobs when they get out, as opposed to just debt with no jobs. So it's a big effort. We estimate that 2 million jobs would be filled in the United States today had it been done properly.
We had this conversation last night talking about the interconnection between workforce and education, and we were highlighting Germany, where there's incredible apprenticeship programs. And I was in a facility recently where they were doing very high precision manufacturing. You had students who were actually working there. They were going to come out right from that program in high school right into jobs. And so that's the kind of thing you're describing.
Exactly.
So you've also been really supportive nationally and very much here with small business and trying to encourage and mobilize small business. And so maybe you could share your thoughts around that and a little bit of the connection between also small business and big business.
So you have to remember, small business and big business is symbiotic. And job growth doesn't come from one or the other, even though it's a very common thing to say small business creates jobs. What ultimately creates jobs is capital expenditures. And so in the United States, think of it, it's almost $2 trillion a year. Plant, equipment, IT, et cetera. Half of that comes from the Fortune 1000. So when anyone makes a plant, in that plant is so many jobs. Outside that plant is usually 5 to 10 times the amount of jobs, often in small business. And so we're one of the largest small business lenders in America. Probably maybe the largest in America. There are 20 million small businesses, though something like 17 million are one person. But you know, the small business segment is a vibrant segment. It's a growing segment. You listen to the people here, wherever you go, and they're just moving on. They're trading more branches and more products and more services. And but it is symbiotic. And we have to do as a nation just continue to foster small business, middle market companies, capital expenditures, and you know, do things like make sure we keep our capital here. Like, you know, government tax policies does send a lot of capital overseas, which is a huge mistake.
So this is an area we've seen a great explosion of entrepreneurial energy here in Columbus, but I love this notion that it's really a symbiotic connection between small businesses and those emerging mid-sized businesses and large businesses, and the connection, we feed one another, and that's what we're seeing in the people who you recognized a few minutes ago are examples of that brewing. Right. Let's talk a little bit about the U.S. economy. Obviously, you get asked this all the time, but we're going to make you do this today. And you've been relatively bullish about where things are. Maybe you could give us a little bit of your perspective on the U.S. economy. We'll go from there to global.
All right, so let me give you the big picture view, because people forget it. You know, when you read too much of the problems out there, the United States has the best hand ever dealt of any country on the planet today. It's got the best military, and it will for years. It has the best big, medium, and small businesses. If you travel around the world, that's not true. Some are just huge businesses. Some they don't have big businesses at all, and there's no successful country without large, successful, big, global type of companies. It's got the most innovation, from Steve Jobs to the factory floor to, we teach people, contribute, make things work better. So it could be the receptionist or the teller or the factory worker who comes up with that one thing that makes things more efficient. We have the widest and deepest capital markets the world's ever seen. I'm not talking about banks, I'm talking about venture capital, I'm talking about you, individual investors, public markets, private markets, Wall Street, asset managers, private equity, you name it. We have great, very low corruption. I travel around the world. I don't worry about corruption in the United States. You could be damn sure you worry about it in some of the countries I have to go to. And so great work ethic still. You know, you go to any American city, people like to work. So we've got it all. Our future is very bright. And if you don't believe me, read Warren Buffett when he talks about the resiliency of this country. And he'll throw in there probably too, the resiliency of the government system. So as much as we talk about gridlock, you don't question whether it can be a democracy. You may not like who you voted for or something like that, but you don't question that. And so very good long-term hand. Right now we're doing quite well. You know, we're going to 2.5%. It should be faster. You know, business is vibrant. We're adding jobs. We've added 1 million jobs in the last 3 months or 4 months. The only difference now is, if you ask me why is it not faster, it's just reams of bad policy. Bad immigration policy, bad tax policy, we had government shutdowns and all these silly things, just shooting ourselves in the foot. And I'm not going to sit here and blame Republicans and Democrats. I blame them all. It's, you know, to me, it's just, we've just been wasting a lot of time pointing fingers and not collaborating. And that's another great example, you know, because Mike Coleman, who's been a great mayor and has been the mayor for almost 16 years, well, look at the collaboration. He's a pro-business Democrat, you know, and that's a great thing. You know, if businesses do something bad, punish them. But in the meantime, most of them really want to do good stuff, and they want to contribute to the community. So that's what we need a little bit more of, and is collaboration between the federal government, companies, and just a few wise policies, and we will be booming. That's not to say that we have divine right to success. We don't. So, you know, if we don't fix immigration, infrastructure, inner-city school education is a damn disgrace in America. Half the kids do not graduate, and they're mostly poor minority. And I don't know about you, I find that embarrassment for a country like ours. And there are a bunch of other things we just have to get done to maintain our position.
So probably, would you say, if you say, what are the things that are going reasonably well, so what are the big derailers? Are they really, this may lead us to the global, but are these really in the policy area in your view? What could get in the way?
Well, yes, I think bad policy could be derailer, but I don't see that happening now. What we see now is that the government is kind of making a little bit of progress step by step. They're arguing, but they call it a omnibus bill, but a budget bill for the first time in, I think, 5 years. Maybe we'll make a little bit of progress in immigration. Maybe we'll make a little bit of progress on taxation. So I don't see the political system as derailing us. It's better than it was. And you do see some rational people trying to make some progress there. The biggest derailer, if you look at history, is geopolitics is the one you're scared about the most. And so you talk about Ukraine or Greece or Eurozone or something like that. And I would tell you those are legitimate things to worry about. But unless they get a lot worse, they're not going to derail the United States economy. And one of our economists made a list of all the conflicts out there. Remember, there have been multiple wars in Afghanistan. There's Chechnya, Georgia. There's the Vietnam War, the Korean War. There were several wars in the Middle East. Of all those things, only one caused a recession. That was the 1973 Suez Canal crisis, oil price, et cetera. So unless, and this morning they announced, hopefully, a real ceasefire in Ukraine, unless something goes terribly wrong, those things aren't going to derail it. They will make you nervous. And of course, if you talk about Iran, and you're going to worry more about the people than the economy. But in economic terms, I don't think those things are going to derail us quite yet.
So it's interesting. Just a few years ago, we would have had a conversation, and all we would talk about is the BRIC nations, right? Brazil,
Right.
Russia, India, China. That's where all the growth is. The United States was question mark. Looks a little different today. So maybe this is a good segue to just sort of talk about what you see around the globe. There's probably no business and no leader who's more connected to what's happening around the globe, and maybe this would be a good point.
So I'll give you a quick tour around the world, and we do business like in 150 countries. We're on the ground in something like 60. So I won't go through each country, just through the major ones. China, in my opinion, for economic things, will meet its 7% projected growth. Why? They have the wherewithal. They've got $4 trillion in what we call unused reserves, and 2/3 of it is in U.S. dollars securities, basically. And they can macro-manage in a way that you can't in the United States. And the macro-management kind of works when you're still a developing nation, and so they'll meet those terms. I do believe if you're doing business there that sometime from the 4th year to the 15th year out, they are going to have major issues. They can't macro-manage forever. They've got to broaden out the democracy. You always worry. There's huge corruption issues. They know about these problems. They are very sophisticated people in that country. But those problems will cause bumps in the road down the road. Europe is sick, okay? And Europe is going to be sick for a long time. It's just really hard to get 19 nations to agree to fiscal policies and social policies, and they're directly related. The entitlement policies in all these countries have to be, if they're not common, you're going to have real problems. Banking policies, the logic was always good. Let's have peace on this damn continent. We've had wars, the 100-Year War, the 30-Year War, the Franco-Prussian War, the First Franco-Prussian War, the First World War I, World War II. Well, hell, I think it's a good thing that the people got together and said, let's have peace. So when you look at the Eurozone, don't just look at it scans. And then they came up with the common market, and the Eurozone, the euro may have been a mistake, that they can't go backwards. They got to make it work. So the thing about Europe is, in terms of the economy, though, it'll probably do better in 2015 than 2014, marginally. So it's not a negative on the global economy. And the same thing about Japan. I won't go through it. It's also going through its own growing pains, but it'll probably do a little bit better in 2015 than 2014. And the emerging markets are all different, but in total, we'll be okay. Some will shrink a little bit, but they'll probably be okay.
So how about Russia? Russia's been a sort of a particularly tricky area, right?
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that?
So Russia is really confusing, okay? And we've announced we've got exposures there, and whatever happens, we're going to be fine. And we all had kind of made the bet that Russia would join the industrialized world, and it had been. And now we've had this huge kind of setback in what that policy is. Like I said, I don't think Ukraine is going to derail Europe or Russia unless it gets far worse. So unless it spills over and that NATO somehow has to start putting troops in to defend other nations. And but remember, we had civil war in Georgia and Chechnya, and it was fine. They were in Afghanistan for 10 years, and it was fine. There are some real dangers in Russia, and so we keep a close eye on it. And Russia itself will be shrinking this year. They've caused themselves huge economic issues. If we don't have peace there, the American government is going to raise sanctions. There are some sanctions that could really hurt, and then might actually cause the next round of problems. The issue, I heard Henry Kissinger speaking the other day, and there's an unpredictability to Vladimir Putin, and we just got to keep that in mind.
Yep. So while we're talking global politics and Jamie's involvement in the global arena, so last night we were at dinner and we're sitting and talking. We get a phone call. Jamie gets a phone call. We think, well, it's probably a big policy discussion, global policy, and it's his daughter. And they're FaceTiming. And as they finish, I hear this, "Dad, you forgot to hang up the phone again." So much for the global arena.
It is so neat. I know, but you can, she did it. I have a granddaughter, 10 months old, and wherever you are in the world, you can do this FaceTime stuff and have a little chat. And the baby, who's only 10 months old, recognizes you on the screen, so it's really kind of cool.
So how many times have you heard that from your child, right?
Yeah.
"Dad, hang up the phone."
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the banks, some changes, lots of discussion about the size, the too big to fail issue. You've led this company through an extraordinary recession and came out incredibly well positioned and healthy. So first, your perspective on the whole, do we stay together? What's too big to fail? Is there such a thing? And then maybe we'll talk a little bit about leadership and leadership through crisis.
So the stay together, I mean, that's an irrelevant subject to me. The subject, you always should look at business not from what you want, but from the point of view of the client. So if we can come to Columbus and provide small business, middle market, big company banking, which we do with you, in a cost-effective way where you're gaining share, that's what determines whether the model works, not what I want. The model clearly works. We have some of the best businesses in the world, and they were not 10 years ago. We have some of the best returns. We dwarf most of our competitors. We've gaining share in credit card, consumer, commercial, small business, middle market, investment bank, global banking, fixed income trading. So we're doing great. Now, we do have huge issues that we got to deal with, and some self-created, and some just got to navigate through the regulatory environment. Having said that, you don't want a too big to fail company. It's a mistake to have a company, if it fails, it hurts you. And that did happen. Now, it didn't happen with JP Morgan. We did not need government money. We were not bailed out. It's a lie that all banks needed TARP. But the fact is, some of these did. So we should recognize we had a crisis. Part of it was in the financial system, and you need reform. You need good regulations. And I always talk about having good, not just more. But so we supported a lot of the regulations. We don't support all of them, but hell, there are thousands of them. I've never met anyone who supports all of them, because you couldn't even take you probably the rest of your life to read them. And so we support it. We should get rid of the concept. I call it should have been bankruptcy for big dumb banks. Put them out of their misery, bury the name, fire the board and the management, claw back their comp. I agree with all that. I'm not on the side of the American public, and we're trying to put structures in place that make that so it's believable. So, and the whole issue is, do you provide service for clients? You need, there's another one, you need big global banks. So, I love these banks that, and you need community banks. The ecosystem that we have is really, really complex. We're not all going to be in every community with every product and every service doing everything. So you provide where you can. But globally, we do business probably with you guys, I should have checked, probably in 10 or 20 countries. We move $6 to $10 trillion a day. We can finance a $20 billion bridge loan over a weekend because someone wants to do something confidentially. When we raise capital for clients, we can raise it in 5 different currencies in 7 different locations. And so we raise, for clients, huge sums of capital for the client. And so and we consolidate your cash all around the world. And so these are very complex things. You should keep them as simple as possible. But I really do mean this. It would be a real shame if our policy in America, dismantles a JP Morgan Chase, and the bank you're dealing with in 10 years is China Construction Bank. And someone's going to say, what the hell happened to our JP Morgan Chases? And I really do believe that, by the way. And the Chinese banks are coming. They're now twice our size, and they have a natural market, their own company. So, so we're trying to navigate the regulations, deal with the new capital requirements, and we're fairly convinced we can do that and serve our clients well and earn a good return for ourselves. And it's also true, we were a port of safety in the storm. I remind a lot of people that we bought Bear Stearns at the request of the United States government, and let me tell you, it scared the hell out of me. And but in '09, we rolled over $1 trillion of loans. And we didn't call you up and say, we're going to roll them over at 1,000 over or 1,500 over, because that's the market price. Because if we didn't treat you like we have to be steadfast, and we got to be there for you in good times and bad times. That's true whether you're in India or in Columbus. And so the banks were there. Most of the banks were there. And John Stewart, who was making fun of me on TV because I said that publicly, said, "There's Jamie again. We were on Wall Street. You need me on the wall." Well, I find it very funny. He's right. You needed your banks to be there for you in tough times. So I know a lot of examples the banks backed out and companies didn't survive. So you want a strong system, but you also want a system that isn't so much market-based that the second, if you're borrowing from a hedge fund, they ain't going to be there in the dark moments. I work with 1 million hedge funds. They can't be there in the dark moments. I will be there in the dark moments for you.
This is one of the things that people don't appreciate. First of all, the interconnectedness, the complexity of this, and also I think Jamie's approach, which I've always appreciated, which is, it's not like saying all regulation is bad, right? There's regulation that we need. It needs to be good. It needs to be thoughtful. Exactly. It needs to be pro-growth.
Exactly.
And so let's talk a little bit about managing through a crisis. We've got a couple of minutes, and I want to make sure we do that. You've been through an incredible stretch, and obviously 2008 and coming out of that. Tell us a little bit about leading through change. We know the bank emerged incredibly well, but you had to keep a very large organization, what, 250,000 people now globally, 175,000 in the US alone. So keeping that organization focused, inspired, tell us a little bit about your thinking there.
Well, management is I think is kind of a relentless process. So I guess first, like someone said to me, what changed in the crisis versus before? Nothing. It's like if you're not prepared for tough times, you can't like get prepared when times get tough. Like you need the army before the war starts. And so that means a disciplined group, they know what they're doing. The only real difference is that our risk committee used to meet once a week for a couple hours. And in the crisis, it met at 7 a.m., 12, lunchtime, 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 5 a.m. if it had to, 24/7 for 6 straight months. And we didn't say, it wasn't very formal. We said, hey, if you got a problem, go to the meeting and bring the people you got to have. And everyone shares the reports and shares the information, tries to react very quickly. But I think the most important thing about management is that people can speak up, people get real information, fire the assholes, okay? Because I'm sure you've all put up with them, but they will destroy your company. It doesn't take many of them. And it's not about them. If people have these meetings, and it's like after the meeting, they say, I got to come see you. They always have to come see you after the meeting and say, why? Well, I didn't want to say it in front of everybody, but. Unless it's really personal or confidential, you say no. If you can't say it in front of everybody, you shouldn't be getting the big bonus you're getting. Because the answer should be, here's what I think of the following reasons why. You got to deal with conflict, lay the issues out, have constant conversation about it, fabulous information. If you don't know where you're making your profit, you can't make a decision. You may make a decision of something that's not profitable. I do it all the time. But you will be making the wrong decision if you have no idea. And you got to do it country by country, product by product. Give the people who run the businesses authority. Don't let them make excuses about, like if you work for me, it's your agenda. You're going to be with me every single month, and it better be anything important. It can be marketing, sales, production, ops, systems, tax. You can't say, is it revenues or expenses, or we didn't invest in that technology because we couldn't afford it in the budget. If you ever said to me, we didn't invest in important technology because we couldn't afford it in the budget, and you didn't make that clear at the time, honestly, I would probably pull you aside and say, you probably shouldn't have that job. Lay it out, all of it, and then deal with it. And then make decisions that make sense for the company. Forget quarterly profits. Forget quarterly profits, and I don't think most companies are that driven by quarterly profits. Like, you make decisions all the time. If you made them just for quarterly profits, you'd be in trouble. And most of your profits in any one quarter are based on decisions you've made for years. Right. Keep your best. And why do people stay? Because they're treated with respect. They can treat their clients with respect. They know they can call you, and they know you're busting your ass for them. And so there are all these things that make a company work that are just critical.
So for those of you taking notes, in the business book, this is in the chapter that says no asshole policy. Yes.
It's easy to say, it's much harder to do.
It's hard to do.
The other thing about some of these politicians in a business, by the way, I always said, they're experts at being politicians. They've been doing it for 25 years. So the CEO doesn't always notice it himself because they're busy kissing up to you. You got to get around, and you find out that they don't respond to Jim Maltz. That they sound great here, but they're not serving people there. No one at the company actually works for me. So if you're in HR, finance, systems, legal, ops, hell, you're not working for me, you're working for Jim. And if he says you don't return his phone calls, I would get really irritated. And so, that's how you find out the people, they kiss up and they kick down. So you really got to seek out the bad people, and then those are the hardest decisions.
Yep.
But honestly, if you don't make them, that's the ones that will set your company back for a decade.
This issue about having, and some of these folks know me, and I talk about this, good news always flows up really fast.
Right.
Bad news, if you're in a crisis and it's not happening real time, or there's that, we need to talk after, you got a problem. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they got to make a phone call. Like, you know, I read everything. But if they say to me, well, I send you an email about it, I would say to them, phone call, like 24/7. If it's bad, immediately. You know, as opposed to, you know, you sent me a little note saying, I think we may have an issue in Ukraine or something like that. Well, that's not going to, like, wake me up at night. You know, and so.
Familiar turf. All right, so when we're sort of running out of time, I just want to ask you this question. So you're in a situation where nothing you do is private. You're an enormous company. You've got enormous visibility. So how have you, over the years, learned to navigate the fact that basically your entire world is public, and balancing that, thoughts about being in that role?
Well, you know, obviously, you don't really know. I mean, I tell people, a lot of CEOs, there's no roadmap really when you get there. Things are always different than it was for your predecessors, and obviously the first goal is to manage the company. The first thing I was worried about was my children. It wasn't about me. I just wanted them to grow up normal and not, you know, arrogant and not thinking they're entitled, and I think I've succeeded, thank God. But that to me was always the word. Don't screw up your family because you run this big company. And but I always tell people it is your job to take care of if you have a job, you know, and we all spend a lot of time there, but it's your job to take care of your mind, your spirit, your body, your soul, and your family. And you've got to take that officially. So I do. I've always taken my vacations. I've always had my family trips. I always, you know, cut something short for the family. This phone 24/7 is used for emergencies and children and my wife. That's it. You know, and so I do. I read. I do a lot of stuff. I exercise. I try to take care of myself and all the time. And you got to make a real effort. And all your jobs. Forget just my job. Jobs are stressful. You know, dealing with conflict is stressful, and it, you know, can make you sick. So if you don't do those things, you will get sick. And if you need to ask for help, you should ask for help. And so we try to help our own people, but if they're not doing it on themselves, it's not going to work. So, and then, you know, I obviously went through a health thing recently, which, you know, is terrifying. And of course, you know, I had to think about, I couldn't be walking in and out of a hospital getting cancer treatment. And so I do want to make a couple of quick things. I've asked many times about what did it change? And it didn't really change me that much, you know, and I have a clean bill of health. I'm 5 months after treatment, and the treatment is, radiation chemo is pretty tough, but I always thought the most important thing in life is family. And I didn't change that. And people hear me, the second most important is country and humanity. Country, because I love this damn country, and I thank you, that immigrant who said, this is why I wear red, white, and blue, okay? We've hired 8,000 veterans. There is no better country, and I'm unabashed about it. When I go to Davos, I tell all those anti-Americans, you know, when we have our troops defending them all the time. Not that we don't have flaws. You know, 3 of my grandparents came from Greece, though you can't blame me for what happened over there. And
we'll try.
Yeah, but and down here is business. But the fact is, the most I can do for family and, you know, my kids, I said they would cap their time with me. The most I can do for country, humanity, the people at our company, opportunities for people, hiring 8,000, is run a great company. I'll help my country. I help countries around the world. And I want to say one other thing. How many of you are in the medical profession? Well, I mean, thank God for it, because I tell people, I went to this hospital, and here you are, CEO. Yeah, I have no idea what they're doing. I just said to them, just do what you would do for your father, your mother, your brother, or sister, and I'll do my part. And having been touched physically by hundreds of people, phlebotomists, MRI, CAT scans, biopsies, the radiologist team, the oncologist team, the chemotherapy team, the guards, the people who manage this equipment, MRIs, sonograms, they were fabulous. Each and every one of them. It's an amazing experience. And somehow they, you know, I hear this a lot of hospitals by this. I went to Memorial Sloan Kettering, but they do act like that at Village. They're all different, but they all know what you're going through. They all smile when you come in. They're all always asking you if you feel good and explaining what they're doing. And so I just haven't been through it. The medical system in the United States is also the best in the world, and God knows it's saving people's lives left and right.
That it is. That it is. Well, we are out of time. First, we are glad that you're healthy and well. We're glad that you're back home.
Thank you.
We appreciate that, everything you guys do here. we're thrilled that you joined us today.
George, thank you
Really
very much.
appreciate it.
Congratulations to you too, and to all of you, thank you.